Hey, this is Chris. Hope you're doing well, and welcome to Popcorn Finance, the show where we discuss finance in about the time it takes to make a bag of popcorn. Back in episode 260, I answered a question that came in from April, who had a really great credit score, but she felt that she needed to get her score even higher. And this concern isn't unique just to her. I felt exactly like this, and I wanted my score to be as high as possible just because that's what we're taught to care about. You got to have a high credit score. You got to have a perfect credit score. But really, having a perfect credit score really comes with no rewards whatsoever. So that's why when I came across this tweet from today's guest, I knew I had to have him on. So I'd like to welcome to the show Kevin Matthews II, best-selling author, investing expert, and founder of Building Bread. Kevin, how's it going?
Going pretty well. How are you?
I'm doing good. I appreciate you hopping on here with me.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
you're out there tweeting on the internet. I came across it, and it just hit me when I saw it. And I think I messaged you right after right after I read this tweet. I was like, I think this might be a good podcast episode. This is what you wrote. 62% of millionaires have their net worth in IRAs or 401ks and taxable investment accounts. And then of the remaining 38%, 28% is split between cash and real estate. 10% is and 10% is just other. Knowing that, why in the world do y'all keep choosing a perfect credit score when compared to cash or any other true asset? So I want to know what was bothering you, Kevin, when what was bothering you in life when you decided to post this tweet?
Man, these internet streets be getting on my nerves. So, for those who have somehow missed it, there is an infamous zombie argument that keeps rising its head like every 5 weeks, and it's would you take a perfect credit score versus some ridiculous amount of money. Sometimes $1,000 or sometimes $100,000, sometimes $1,000,000. And for some reason, there is always a group of people that always choose a perfect credit score as if it is some, I don't know, some infinity gauntlet magical tool that like solves all of your issues. And that ain't what it does. That's not what it does at all.
No, okay, I've seen these tweets going around too. And I just assumed they were like a joke, but people are serious about this. Like they're really like, I think this is a hard decision for people to make.
Yeah, yeah, there are a lot of people that really force themselves into weird argument boxes where it's like, well, if this, and this happens, I can get a huge loan with this credit score and then go buy whatever it is I want to buy. I'm like, but you could have just did it with that cash. You could have also just did it there, right? But yeah, I think sometimes we try to overthink things, but I think what we really do is not understanding what a credit score is. I think we try to oversimplify stuff, kind of like a GPA. Like, oh, if your GPA was 4.0, you are automatically smart. That's not how it works either, right? But that's kind of what we've kind of made credit scores out to be.
Oh, okay, so I'm clearly on your side of this. Where yes, I think having a perfect credit score is completely overrated and it's not needed. But for those of people out there listening who may be like, hey, well, I feel differently. I think a credit score it weighs has a huge weight when it comes to my financial life. Tell us from your point of view, like why you have that stance of there's other things that are a bigger deal for your finances than just your credit score.
Yeah, so properly, it falls within maybe the top 10 financial priorities. Wouldn't be my top 3, but I would put it somewhere between 4 and 10. And the reason is there are some serious limitations of what you can and cannot do with that credit score. Number 1, it can only go up but so high. My bank account has no limits on how much can go in it. I have no limits on how high my 401k can grow. So that's number 1. It's not something that can be inherited or passed down. My credit score is my credit score. My kids are going to have theirs, and that's just the end of it. But again, the real estate that I own, the money is in my bank account, the money is in my 401k. I can transfer all of that stuff and it can compound on top of that for the next generation. That credit score, it caps out at 850. It doesn't compound. The longer you have it, it will never get much higher than that. And that's just the end of it. But then lastly, it's only limited to things that you can borrow money for. And you can't necessarily borrow money for your 401k or your investments in a traditional sense. And unless I need the money for, again, real estate, buying a car, you're running up into the limits of what you can use it for, and that's pretty much it. And then lastly, just because you have the credit score, yes, it can make your interest rates cheaper to borrow, but it ain't free.
Mm.
Like, I still have to pay for that regardless of
True.
what it is I'm borrowing that money for, and you have to discount that when you're talking about the profits that you're making from whatever it is you're using that credit score for.
Oh, those are 4 great points right there. I wasn't expecting you to be that ready and prepared to have a great answer like that.
I've been fighting these people for so long.
But I mean, that's so true. The one that really got me with, because I don't think we're taught to think of credit scores this way, is that, like you said, it's not a score of how good you are with all aspects of your financial life. It's literally solely isolated on how good you are at borrowing money and paying it back. And that's it.
Mhm.
And we put
Mhm.
all this other weight on it, all this other importance, as if I have an 850 credit score, that means I'm just good at everything. I'm a great investor. I'm a great saver. I got great my health and life insurance is set up great. Like, I'm great at everything. When really that's not what it means at all.
Right, right, and imagine too, like, you can have a perfect credit score, right, and have 0 money in the bank. And that like, I think a while back, I said, like, you could have a perfect credit score and be broke.
Yeah.
And right? Like, there are a lot of people that, "Yeah, my credit is perfect. I got this, and this." And like, "Yeah, but do you have emergency savings? No. Do you invest your money? No." And that's just it, right? It's just like a GPA. Like, it is worth a lot in certain circumstances. When you apply into school, that first job that you get out of college, if you even decide to go to college, that's when it's really, really, really important. Outside of that, when I go to eat or at a restaurant, nobody care about my credit score. They care about, like, do you have money to pay for this meal, right? And like, after what, my second job out of college, nobody's ever asked me what my GPA is. They don't care. No, like, they don't. And that's the thing. It is very small not, I wouldn't say small. There are very specific circumstances, and when it matters a lot, and then once you passed it, nobody cares anymore.
Mm. Yeah, that's 100% true. I remember I kept my GPA on my resume for so long, and I was like, "Why is this on here? Nobody even cares anymore. No one's ever once asked me a question about this number on this resume."
Yeah, it's unless you're applying to grad school or you just finished college or whatever, that's the only time people ever use it.
And so, all right, for you then, now, I think you've explained it. You made a great argument for why the credit score is not the end all be all number when it comes to your finances. For you, what are the things you focus on? So I know you think about this stuff a lot. Like, you've created so much content. I think you spend a lot of time really thinking deeply about your financial life and how to make the most of it. So for you, what are the areas you focus on if it's not your credit score?
Yeah, so I focus on three primary areas, and I talked about this in my book, where we just tailor it down and say it's savings, investing, and protecting. So we call it the SIP system, and those are the three major areas in your financial life that you need to take care of. And I would venture to say that 99.9% of all financial instruments and products and all that stuff out there is going to fall in one of these three buckets. So savings, we talk about this all the time. That's your emergency savings. Your investments, you want to make sure that your money is going to work. You might have a 9 to 5, your money needs a 9 to 5 too. So you want to make sure that money is working. And then the protection piece, that's where we talk about like health insurance, life insurance, and the things you should have in place to protect the wealth that you've built. After that, yeah, maybe you throw in credit score or whatever else comes after that. But those are the three primary pillars that I see are the most important for people.
No, I love that. I think that's a great way to frame it. Like, that's your foundation. That's what you're building everything off of right there. That's what's going to have the biggest impact. And don't ignore your credit score, but you don't have to elevate it and put it on this pedestal like it's going to change everything about your life if you have this great credit score. So I think that's a great perspective to have. Thank you so much for coming on here and really breaking this down. I think even if you were on the fence of like, I think credit scores are okay, but I don't care that much. But I think this now really puts it all in perspective. And I think makes us all have a more healthy view of the credit score and the role it plays and how highly we should think of it. So before we get out of here, I always like to ask our guests, like, what's going on with you? Where can people reach out to you if they want to ask you more questions and maybe even dig deeper into your philosophy on the other areas of your financial life?
Yeah, so you can find me on all things social media. I'm very conversational. I love talking to people in the comments, even when we agree and disagree. So you can find me Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and public, all at Building Bread. You can learn more about me, my background, and what I do at buildingbread.com.
All right, perfect. And then also, I was looking back here. Now, I didn't want to let you leave without talking about this. On my bookshelf here, I have a book here. It may be backwards on the screen. It's called From Burning to Blueprint: Rebuilding Black Wall Street After a Century of Silence. But look, Kevin Matthews right there on the bottom. So, so I know you're being humble and modest. You maybe didn't want to throw anything else in there, but tell us a little bit about this book before you get out of here.
Yeah, so that's the book I just finished earlier this year. It talks about building generational wealth, but also talks about the history of Black Wall Street, which is where I'm from. I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma. And it was really a research project for me, but also um, really a therapeutic experience to talk about like what happened in my hometown, why are things the way that they are, what was the history of the Tulsa Race Massacre, but also how do we rebuild and what is the blueprint that we should move forward to ensure that everyone has economic opportunities and that I can make sure that my kids and my kids' kids are going to be better off financially than what the generation previous was experiencing. So we talk about the SIP system. We don't talk about credit scores, but we talk a little bit about it. But those are the non tangible things that I can't translate, I can't grow on. So I wanted to make sure that we have a blueprint to rebuild Black Wall Street and the importance of that event and what we should do moving forward.
All right. Well, I'm going to make sure I put a link to this in the show notes for everybody as well if you want to check out the book, and then also links to all your social handles and where they can reach out to you. So I appreciate you coming on. I knew I was going to love having this conversation with you, and I was right. It was a great conversation, and it was great having you on.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for watching. And if you haven't already, go check out the Popcorn Finance Podcast. It's a short form show where I discuss finance and about the time it takes to make a bag of popcorn. Or you know what? You can just stick around here and watch another video. Either way, I appreciate you joining me here for another bag of popcorn. Hope you have a great rest of your week, and I'll talk to you soon.